Hello everyone. So the next topic which I will be discussing is about the mechanism of the muscle contraction. So now I will be discussing that there are various steps which are involved in the contraction of the muscle. Let's start with the first slide of introduction. That what is muscle contraction? So muscle contraction is the activation of tension generating sites within the muscle cells. So this is a diagrammatic representation which is only showing like how the muscles are contracted. So this is a termination of the muscle contraction which is being followed by muscle relaxation, which is a turn of the muscle fiber to their low tension generating state. Now, there are various steps that are involved in the muscle contraction. So, let's start with the steps that are involved in the muscle contraction. So, first step is when there are a sequence of events that leads to the contraction and it has been initiated somewhere in the central nervous system, either as the voluntary activity from the brain or as reflex activity from the spinal cord. So this is the first step when there is a contraction which takes place and the nervous system gives the signals to the brain or there are this is a voluntary activity. Okay, so muscle contraction is a voluntary activity because the person is consciously moving his muscles. So that is the first step. So second step is when the motor neurons, when they come in action. So when the motor neurons in the ventral horn of the spinal cord, it is being activated and an action potential passes outwards in a ventral root of the spinal cord. This is the function of the motor neuron. Next comes the axon. Axon is also the part of a neuron only. So neuron consists of various parts, for example, dendrites, then cell body and axon. So next step is when axon branches, they supply a number of muscle fibers, which is called as the motor unit, and the action potential is being conveyed to the motor end plate on the muscle fiber. So the axon branches, they supply a number of muscle fibers to the motor unit. So what is happening at the motor unit or what is happening at the motor end plate? So at the motor end plate, there is an action potential which causes the release of packets or quanta to acetylcholine into the sympathetic clefts on the surface of the muscle fibers. This is the fourth step when there is a action potential which releases some of the chemicals on the surface of the muscle fiber. The fifth step, when the with the chemicals that are being released, they what they do is so the acetylcholine they causes the electrical resting potential under the motor end plate to change, and this is then initiates an action potential which passes in both the directions along the surface of the muscle fiber. So, at the opening of each transverse tubule onto the muscle fiber surface, there is an action potential which spreads over the muscle fiber. So, the action potential spreads over the muscle fiber. So, at each point where a transverse tubule touches part of the scapoplasmic reticulum, it causes the reticulum to release the Ca2 plus ions. So the calcium ions are being released. So when the calcium ions are released, there is a movement in the troponin and tropomyosin on their thin filaments, and this enables the myosin heads to grab and squirrel their way along the thin filament. So this is the driving force of the muscle contraction. Now, in the next slide, I have depicted one diagram which is showing the summary that how this step has been taken place. So, there is a muscle contraction phase which is being depicted here. So, in contraction phase, what is happening? There is a resting phase. So in the resting phase, there are motor nerve action potential arise at the motor end plate. So we have discussed all these steps in detail, but this is just a summary of what we have studied till now. So in the resting state, the motor nerve action potential arise at the motor end plate. After this, acetylcholine released and sarcoma and membranes depolarize. So there is a sodium flux which has been formed into the muscle fibers. After this step, the action potential is being transmitted via T tubules to the SR. That is the sarcoma reticulum. Then Ca plus is released from the SR terminal cysteine into the sarcoplasm. And after this, which is the last step, when the Ca plus is bound by the troponin. So when the Ca plus is binds with the troponin, it will result in the this enables the myosin molecules heads to grab and pull their way to along the thin filament. So this part, it is the driving force of the muscle contraction. So this was all about the mechanism of the muscle contraction, that how the muscle contracts in these step-by-step manner. So this was all about it. Thank you.